Well, greetings. I'm Dave, aka GeezerGeek. Thank you for your interest in one of my videos. I'm all about things that you can do with tech. Now, if you like this video, I'd appreciate it if you'd just click on that thumbs up button down there. Drop a comment in the comment section if you feel like. I'm planning a video a week. Subscribe if you like. This week, once again, I have a different video than I had planned. And as you can tell from the title and the show notes, this one is about my process trying to troubleshoot an issue that developed with my Ubuntu 2004 installation on my FX 4100 system. First, I'm going to describe the problem, and then I'll share my steps trying to resolve it. Now, if you have watched my videos on using floppies with Ubuntu, then you know I upgraded the kernel on my 2004 installation from that which shipped with it to the latest version. I did this primarily to test the current availability of the floppy module for the kernel. That's because the floppy module has been deprecated and I expect it to get dropped at some point. Now, this update of my kernel is important, as will be seen later. For my next video, I was setting up to do some testing of different CPU cooling solutions and record the process of the testing. Now, my plan was to have OBS on one screen, recording everything else that was being displayed on the other screen. And I'd have 4 or 5 different programs running and displayed on that second screen. So the information to be displayed on that screen was OpenShot running a long video rendering project. That's the test. 2, System Monitor showing the CPU and memory usage. 3, PF Sensors graph showing CPU thermals. 4, another program showing the noise being picked up by the microphone while the test is running. Now, I planned to tabulate all of that data generated and then compare that data to the data from the same test running with a different thermal solution. But I was getting lockups. About the time I got the screens set up the way that I wanted them, everything would hang. It happened several times. The system would be totally unresponsive to the keyboard. The mouse cursor may or may not move on the screen, but even if it did, point and click did nothing. I let it remain for a long time, hoping that the hang would resolve, but it did not. Even hours later, it was still hung. The only way out was a hard shutdown, pushing that power button. So what to do? The rest of this video is about a diagnosis process. It's not about solving your problem, but hopefully my process on this problem will give you some pointers to help you develop your process to solve your problem. So first, I did an internet search. There's a lot of good information out there, a lot of not so good information out there. We have to use our heads. Now, my search engine of choice is DuckDuckGo. You may have a different preference. Whatever. Just know that different search engines will sometimes find different things, and they will often present them in a different sequence. Your results are going to differ, varying with your search engine. But search and read and learn. And if you read something you don't understand, do some more reading. Search, read, learn. If you don't like to learn, Linux may not be for you. And you probably won't like this video. As I've said elsewhere, curiosity has served me well, and I expect it to continue to do so. In my searching, I found someone who had done a video on lockups with Linux. And he laid it to the kernel. So he did a rollback of his kernel with what seemed to be initially positive results. Okay, I thought that's worth a try. After all, I had upgraded my kernel. Maybe that's where the problem developed. But this video was important for another reason, which I'll come to later. Another clue emerged because of this video. So I rolled back my kernel, I purged the other kernels that I had installed, and I still got my same results. Setting up the screens, I would still lock up. The kernel is not the issue. Now earlier I had had some problems with OBS crashing every time I tried to change anything in settings. It would crash. But updating the program solved that problem. I learned that OpenShot also is subject to crashes. And so some have moved to a different video rendering platform, different applications. But I decided, I like what OpenShot does for me. I'll see what I can do with it, make sure that it's fully updated. So I went to both OBS and OpenShot, to their websites, made sure that I had the latest version running on my machine. In one case I did. The other case, I downloaded their app image for the most recent version. Ubuntu is conservative in what they offer in their app store. In other words, they wait to offer later versions until those versions have had an opportunity to prove themselves. Stability. This is not a bad philosophy on Canonical's part, in my opinion. I can get behind it. But in my case, I reasoned if a later version might help, it could be worth a try. That's what I had done earlier with OBS. So I tried, and as I said, in one case I had the latest, in the other, the latest made no difference. In my experience, I had earlier had a problem with a snap version of a program. Going to the multiverse universe repository of their various applications. I tried that, and it did not have the same problems the snap version of the application had. So I decided I'll look for alternatives this time. Whatever version I'm running, whether it's from... Okay, let's pause. Ubuntu has several ways of getting software and running it. You can download it from the Multiverse Universe repository there in the App Store. As you do so, you'll sometimes find a couple versions of the program on their repositories. One of them is likely to be a snap. Pay attention to that. You can read through the details a bit, and it becomes very obvious. So there's snaps, there's the stuff from the regular universe, and there's also the option of finding flat packs, and as I've already mentioned, there's this app image process. So there's at least those ways of getting your software. Long and short for me, in this case, it didn't matter which way I got the software, I was getting the same results. The only thing I did not explore was building from source. So now we're down to step 6. Along the way, I continued to search and read and learn, and one of the things that I learned was when you have problems with your operating system, look more closely at your hardware. Yeah, well, that's been good advice for a while. I'll consider that. It can seem fine, but as I was doing the reading, the issue of memory kept coming up. I'm skeptical on memory, but I'll take a look. Let's be thorough. Let's prove that memory is not a problem. Rule it out. So, step 7, reboot, get into the grub bootloader, scroll down to the memtest option, start it. Not 2 seconds in, it hard hangs just like the programs were doing. No errors indicated on the screen. It just hangs. What is going on? I thought, okay, maybe it is memory. I'm just a really, really flaky memory situation, but that doesn't make sense because usually it's not a problem. But we'll test it thoroughly. Take out one of the sticks, test them one at a time. Same exact results. Either stick, same results, exactly. No matter which slot I put it in, exactly the same results. What's going on? I reasoned the results should not be identical in each of these cases. One of those memory sticks should be different from the other, and they're not. I'm skeptical about memory, so let's try running memtest another way. You can do it by getting a CD of it or a USB drive. Run it live. I went to memtest, downloaded it, burned it to CD, ran it from the CD. Now memtest runs, and it's run for hours, not finding any errors at all. Now 22 hours, 32 minutes, and 5 seconds into it, with 5 completed passes and 0 errors, and it's on pass 6 and 40% of the way through test 7. No errors. I'm convinced memory is not the issue, but I'm going to let it run another 24 hours just to be thorough. We're going to be certain there are no memory issues. So what do I think the problem is? This brings me back to that conversation I mentioned about that other video, where the person who published it said he was convinced now that he had a hardware issue. Now, we're both running older hardware, but his is an iMac. Mine's totally different. It's an AMD build from the ground up. But in this case, I think it's a hardware issue too, and that it's not memory. Here's my reasoning. Memtest hung when running from the boot drive. It did not hang on CD. Running from the boot drive, memtest hangs. Programs on my operating system hang. What do they have in common? The boot drive. This boot drive is a Kingston SSD. Now, I've not found anything to suggest that Kingston has a problem with Linux or vice versa. I've searched. I've found nothing. I don't believe it's a problem with either the brand or the controller that Kingston is using. But I do believe that I have a problem with this SSD or with the onboard SATA controller on my main board that's currently running it. Part of my reasoning in that is, I am pretty sure that when I did my cable management, I moved from the other controller to this controller. It could be this controller has the problem. Now, let me point you to another very important diagnostic tool. It's called dmesg, D-M-E-S-G. You can learn about its usefulness in an article that I have linked in the show notes below. And that article is with TechMint. They are a very good source for information. I highly recommend them. But my messages there are also pointing me toward my drive. So after memtest has run another 24 hours, my next steps, as I said, my main board has these 2 SATA controllers. I'm going to try connecting the boot drive back to the first SATA controller and see if the situation resolves. If it doesn't, then most likely the problem is with the hard drive. But if it does resolve, then I know I have a problem with that second SATA controller. Memtest on the drive doesn't rely on the Ubuntu installation. Ubuntu doesn't. They're unrelated. They're each on the drive, but what they have in common is the drive itself. It's pointing to a hardware problem. And that would point me to replacement. I'll leave a comment in the comments below after I've reached my final conclusions. But meanwhile, I hope this video is helpful to you as you generate your own diagnostic plan for whatever issues you're trying to troubleshoot. Stay curious, my friends. Stay curious.